Okay, good afternoon, good morning, مساء الخير, everybody. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Christian. I am the Programming Operations Manager here at Eyewitness Palestine. And for those who are new to our work or joining us for the first time, our mission is to create lifelong, um, contribute to the lifelong leadership and transformation of organizers for justice in Palestine and justice in our communities more broadly. We do this work primarily through taking delegations to Palestine, as well as through webinars like this one today. Um, and just to give you a brief overview of some upcoming delegations and programming that um, we have two delegations coming up before the end of the year. Witnessing Palestine, which is a general delegation, an overview and introduction to civil society organizations and activists in the West Bank in 1948 Palestine. That's happening late November. And then in December, we have Black in the Holy Land, which is a delegation for Black, Indigenous, and people of color to learn from Afro-Palestinians and other Black and African communities living in historic Palestine. We also have another event next Monday, Education Under Genocide, and this is going to be hearing from Susan Abdelhawa, who is the co-founder of Playgrounds for Palestine, which has launched the Phoenix Elementary School in Gaza as a sanctuary for young learners grades 1 through 5. So we'll be putting signups and information to these delegations and events in the chat. Um, but I'd like to officially welcome you to today's event, Gaza 76 Years and a Genocide Later. Um, and let me stop the screen. And just to speak to the severity and seriousness of the moment we're in, I'm sure it doesn't need any introduction, but we are more than a year into witnessing the just devastating atrocities that are occurring to our family and our communities in Gaza. We've witnessed the deadliest war for children, deadliest war for journalists, deadliest war for healthcare workers. Um, and just a really cruel and unusual siege at the kind of complicity of the United States government, as well as many of the institutions around the world that are supposed to be protecting human rights. And so today we'll be joined by um, two speakers directly from Gaza. Um, Abu Bara, who is, one moment, please. The administrative director of the Ministry of Health at Nasser Hospital in Gaza, as well as Mohammed Qassas, who is a 30-year-old personal trainer and fitness coach from the north of Gaza. Um, After we hear from them, we'll be hearing from Husam Zomlot, who is the Palestinian Ambassador to the United Kingdom. Um, but we have a video to share before we get into the conversations. And to introduce that, I'd like to introduce our executive director, Nancy Mansour, who was able to co-lead a delegation, medical delegation to Gaza in March of this year. All right, Nancy, passing it to you.
Thank you. Peace, salamat, everybody. I'm glad that you joined us today, and we have a very powerful program. As you can see, Talat Abu Bara on the camera there is joining us from Gaza. When I was there in March, he was Director of Administration at the Indonesian hospital in Rafah, which is no longer. And so it's great to see his face. And we'll be speaking in depth with him in a little while. I am going to start this video that was put together by our amazing filmmaker, Michelle Zananiri. And it is a collection of new interviews. It is a collection of messages from children in Ghazi, along with video footage that I was able to take when I was there in March. I will share that with you.
تقريبا من أول يوم في 7 أكتوبر تقريبا، بعد ما بدأت يمكن 3 ساعات الأولى، لبست ملابسي توجهت لمستشفى النجار. ككل حرب وكل مجزرة بنتوجه لمستشفى للشغل تبعي اللي أنا بعمل فيه. فحد اليوم هذا تقريبا وأنا مقيم في المستشفى، ومثلي 70% من الزملاء، يمكن 70% أو 60% من الزملاء في المستشفى ما روحناش أي يوم على البيت. نمت يوم وحيد في البيت في الفترة السابقة، هو اليوم اللي استشهدوا فيه زوجته وأولاده.
فاجانا خبر من بيتنا انه انا شفتي ماكله قذائف، تمام، وكتير مدمره، تمام، وشقة والدي الارض ماكله قذائف وكتير مدمر دمار جثث كبير ومبهدله، وشفت كيف الاضرار فيها كتير، وشقة اخويا ما بيني وبين اخويا ففي قذائف، كان اشي كتير.
حكيت ايش انه لقيتوهن على السطح تبعكم؟
لقينا 4، الدكتور عبد الرحمن وزوجته وبنته فوق على السطح آخر إشي.
كيف وصل هذا؟
ضربة الصاروخ اللي نزل أو البرميل طلع فوق بالفراش تبعه، مستشهدين هم ال4.
وانتوا لقيتوهن؟
طبعا احنا والناس الدفاع المدني اجى اساسا كان يفتش على الشهداء الموجودين تحت، وبالتالي قالوا في 4 مش موجودين، يمكن طلعوا فوق، اجوا دوروا لقيناهم مغطيين بحرماتهم، دمهم موجود على الحيط.
طلعت من المستشفى اللي بعمل فيها بإسعاف تاني أنا وواحد من أولادي. فقلت له لابني الكبير خليك أنت في المستشفى هنا، ممكن يجوا إخوانك هنا صباح، فخليني أروح على المستشفى الثاني أنا وأخوك كويس. فرحنا بالطريق، طلعت في الإسعاف، دعيت ربي دعاء، فقلت يا رب ما ألاقي أولادي مصابين إصابات جامدة، يا خفيفة يا شهداء، لأن أنا شفت الإصابات الجامدة إيش بصير فيها وإيش المعاناة وإيش قصة العلاج وإيش علاج، والتعب في المستشفيات كثير. دعيت هذا الدعاء ومشيت في الإسعاف. رحت هناك لقيت بتصرخ بنت عديلي موجودة، كانت مرضى مداومة هناك بتصرخ. لقيت جثث موجودة على الأرض مفروض مكفنين موجودين. لقيت 4 أولاد زوجتي، تعرفت عليهم كده. زوجتي هذا واحد، ابن الصغير عمره 8 شهور كان. اسمه في اللي وراه بيجي محمد عمره 10 سنوات أكبر منه، بيجي وراه عبد الرحمن 12 سنة، بتيجي بعدها ليان هي اسمه بنت وحيدة 14 سنة.
9 شهور واحنا بنبحث واحنا بنفس الجدول، اليوم صبح ومساء بأي وقت وين هو راح وين ما راحش. طب ممكن يرجع، ممكن حي، ممكن تخيلات ب1000 سيناريو، لكن انت حدا مؤمن بالله، حدا واقعي جدا، وبتتعامل مع المعطيات. الواقع بقول هو من ضمن المفقودين اللي هم كتير من الناس لحد الآن اللي هي انفقدت وما في عنها أي خبر. فهل هي تحللت؟ لكن روحها أكيد بتسعد بربها. فبس اللي هي بتضل غصة القلب، هو اندفن دفنش، إيش آخر لحظاته كانت يعني.
Just see the shrapnel does, imagine it hitting your body.
خلينا نشوف الخزانة هذه زي هيك.
كله نعم.
هذا حجار، كله كان حجار. حجار وخشب ورمل وإيش بتحكي بلاط من تحت من عند جيراننا، كله أجى في المنطقة هذه، كله كان هذا مليان. الدرج هذا كان كله مليان زي هيك، حجار ورمل وكل شيء ردم. هذا السور ما كانش. هاي درب زين، هذا فيش شيء، سور كله راح. هذا كله كان مليان. هاي الطاقة الطاقة هذا فوق. هذا الدوش الصحن
كله كسر.
هذا الزيقو فوق، هذا ما كانش. أنا لقيوا بنت صغيرة. هذا لقيوا هم الأربعة لقيوهم في الشقة. هاي دمهم، هذا دم كله. هذه الفرشة جت من تحت. هون لقيناها برا طبعا.
قلت الفرشة هاي من عندهن؟
بالأربعة، هو وزوجته وبنات التنين. طفلة صغيرة عمرها شهر ونص تقريبا. الطفلة الثانية 3 سنوات. كله بالفراش هون، غير الحرامات وغير البطانيات ومش عارف ايش. كله شلناه. هذا كان في ردم كبير، تراب وحجار وخشب، كل شيء كان موجود. الحمد لله على ما كتب الله.
انك تعيش في سنة كاملة من الحرب أشبه بالجحيم. يعني كل يوم من أيام الحرب هو يوم قيامة، هو يوم لا ينسى، ذكريات سيئة، وكمان هي محاولات للنجاة. يعني كل يوم أنت بتحاول تنجو في يومك، بتحاول تنجو بصحتك النفسية، صحتك الجسدية. هذا إشي كتير صعب. النجاة بشكل مستمر صعبة جدا.
هاي الفاميل أبو عمشة. He's a guitarist.
Oh nice.
To be honest, he's the يعني I've never seen a guitarist like him. يعني he's a real talent. And here we have different artists as well. Here we have 10 tents. This tent is for a DJ. This one for soul band. Here we make our meetings, we do our meetings. Another guitarist, producer, Hanin. They lost their father in Gaza, and they are only women in this tent. Ali Juju, he's one of the producers, best producers actually. So yeah, this shelter is only for the artists who don't have a place to shelter them. And we're trying by all means, by everything we have, the smallest things we have, to put our kids away from the sound of bombing, away from the explosives, away from the war atmosphere.
I never imagined, or I never, even in my dreams, I never imagined that I will live in such a condition and such a.
ما بتخيل انه انا يعني اذا انتهت الحرب راح اكون نجيت نفسيا اذا نجيت جسديا. الحرب جوانا وراح تضل عايشة جوانا.
It will be very difficult for us to build our country once again, or our society once again. So we have to work hard again as Palestinian, of course. So, but I'm sure that we will succeed. As we succeeded before, also we'll succeed once again. And I hope this war will end soon, and we will have you when peace is in our country, so we can enjoy sitting with you.
شكرا إن شاء الله.
يعني أنا إذا بدي أوصل رسالة لإله أو لأي حدا في العالم، إنه كتير إحنا اشتقنا لحياتنا ما قبل 7 أكتوبر. كتير اشتقنا لضحكتنا. آه كتير اشتقنا لعفويتنا، لكلمة صباح الخير طالعة بحب، لكل حاجة لكل حاجة. كتير اشتقت للست الختيارة اللي كانت بتبيع نعنع، تطلقت نعنع وبتبيعه بشيكل، اشتري مني وتصبح وقول صباحك رزق وهيك. كتير مشتاق للسواقين الخط اللي كانوا على الشارع بيمرقوا، وين طالع صباح الخير يا عمي، صباح النور إن شاء الله هيك يومك حلو. لبياعين القهوة، تعال يومنا قهوتي طيبة اليوم خلينا نقسمها. كتير مشتاق هيك تجاعيد الختيار وهيك وحكاياته وعكازاته. كتير اشتقنا لكل حاجة. اشتقت لإمي أشوفها تقول لي يا أبو آدم. آه صباح الخير يا أبو آدم. كتير مشتاق لكل حاجة وتفاصيلنا وحكاياتنا. مشتاقين لنفسنا، مشتاقين إحنا بدنا نوصل رسالة لحالنا. إحنا اشتقنا لك كتير، لأنت لكونك لذاتك. على الله نتمنى من الله تخلص ويخلص هالكابوس. نتمنى من الله يا الله، بس انت اللي بتحلى من عندك. انا كتير اتشرفت وسعيد تجمع فيكم، وشكرا لسعة الصدر تبعتكم اللي سمعتني وروحكم الحلوة.
I'm gonna pass it to Christian.
Thank you, Nancy. Um, if you can make me a co-host, that'll let me do a bunch of different things right now. Um, but yeah, once again, thank you for everyone who's joined this event. Thank you, Michelle, for putting together this video, and thank you specifically to the speakers in the video that are with us today, Mohammed Qassas and Abu Bara. We are going to pass the microphone to you shortly with the translation from my colleague Mohammed. And I'd like to start with the question for Abu Bara, which is if you can just share, because this event is talking about 76 years in a genocide later. So we're acknowledging that what's happened in Gaza over the last year, that the oppression and the violence and the suffering didn't start last October. They've been going on really for 100 years, but definitely over the last 76 years of Israel's history on Palestine's land and oppressing Palestine's people. So my question for you, Abu Bara, is if you can speak to generally how has Israel targeted the medical field in Palestine over the last 76 years? And during the last year, what has been different or unique or specific about the conditions the medical field is facing in Gaza? And Hamid, I'll pass it to you for translation.
Thank you, Christian. Hi, everybody. I'm Mohammed Qasim, the Communications Coordinator at Eyewitness Palestine. سلامات أبو البراء. Can you سامعني؟ أبو البراء إذا عامل ميوت غلبك بس تعمل إنه تشيل الصامت تبع الزوم. بالبراء هيك سامعني؟
يعني بس المهم الصوت يكون عالي.
ماشي حبيبي. السؤال من زميلي كريستيان بيسألك إنه إحنا بنعرف ال 76 سنة الماضيين إسرائيل واظبت على الهجوم على الفلسطينيين بشكل عام وغزة بشكل خاص، وكان الهجوم اللي إسرائيل بتعمله دائما على القطاع الصحي، القطاع الغذائي، وجميع القطاعات بقطاع غزة. فالسؤال هون شو التغييرات اللي حسيتها إسرائيل وجهتها خاصة للقطاع الصحي بالسنة الأخيرة اللي هي ما بعد 7 أكتوبر، وكيف حسيت التغييرات بالهجوم على القطاع الصحي؟ لأي درجة؟ هل زادت الدرجة؟ إيش بالضبط ركزوا على إيش بالهجوم؟ إذا بتقدر تجاوبنا على السؤال أغلبك.
بخصوص القطاع الصحي بآخر سنة يمكن بعد 7 أكتوبر، بصراحة كان مستهدف القطاع الصحي، يعني استهداف يكون أعتقد شبه مباشر أو متعمد. النقطة الأولى، تم يعني اقتحام المستشفيات بشكل مباشر، قام بدخولها قوات الاحتلال الإسرائيلي. بداية مستشفى الشفاء لجميع مستشفيات قطاع غزة. تقريبا تم دخول جميع المستشفيات، مستشفى. آه،
أغلبك بس
بدأت-
عشان تعطيني مجال أترجم للمستمعين، فبعد كل جملة بناخذ بريك صغير عشان أترجمه للإنجليزي. So I will start by saying after the 7th of October, Israel directly targeted the health sector in Gaza by invading multiple hospitals, if not all. They started with the invasion of a Shifa hospital that we all witnessed on social media and broadcast media as well. That attack on a Shifa hospital uh, was direct and it was purposely done. And following a Shifa hospital, they started attacking and invading every other hospital that exists in Gaza. تفضل أبو البراء.
آه، المستشفيات غير الاقتحام، تم اعتقال عدد كبير من الكوادر الصحية من خلال اقتحام المستشفيات. آه، تم إعدام عدد من الكوادر الصحية سواء في الميدان أو سواء من استشهد منهم في السجون الإسرائيلية بعد اغتيالهم. تم التحقيق مع معظم الكوادر الصحية تقريبا. هذا خلال الاقتحام أنا بحكي لك لسه. تم تفتيش كل غرف المستشفيات تقريبا. أنا أنا في مستشفى ناصر الآن في خانونس تقريبا، بالقرب مني بعد 100 متر تقريبا من هنا تم اكتشاف مقبرة جماعية داخل مستشفى ناصر بخان يونس. مستشفى فيها أنا ذاكر أعتقد عدد من العشرات جثث، وفي منهم أغلبها كانت يعني مصابين من المنومين المرضى في المستشفيات، لأنه كان في بعض الأجهزة تثبيت العظام بأرجل بعض المرضى أو الشهداء داخل المقبرة. في منهم نساء، كان في مقبرة جماعية داخل مستشفى ناصر. آه، تقريبا قبل عدة شهور تم اكتشافها، يعني بعد بعد الخروج من مدينة خان يونس.
تمام. So he said while invading hospitals in Gaza, the Israeli occupation forces made sure to arrest the medical staff at every hospital they invaded. While arresting the medical staff, from doctors to nurses to first responders, they started conducting investigations and taking some of the detainees to what is called today Israeli prisons and Israeli facilities to do the investigation. Abu al-Bara is currently in Nasser Hospital, 100 meters away from him. 2 months ago, they discovered a mass grave next to the compound of the hospital he's in, one for women and one for men. And the mass grave has multiple dead bodies, more than 100, as he stated, majority of which were injured people and people who were seeking medical attention from the hospital. تفضل أبو البراء.
آه، أنا بحكي عن تقريبا عن اقتحامات المستشفيات بشكل مباشر. طبعا الاقتحام كان يعني سواء بعد أو قبل بتولد عنه برضه بعض أعمال النهب أو السرقة، سواء من عملاء الاحتلال أو اللصوص تقريبا. يعني المستشفيات اتدمرت عند دخول الاحتلال لها. آه، النقطة الثانية المهمة إنه نقص المواد أو انعدام المستلزمات الصحية والأدوية وأجهزة العمليات. هذه النقطة المهمة، خاصة في ال6 شهور الأخيرة. يعني في ال6 شهور الأولى يعني في بنسبة 50 أو 60% في نقص. أنا أعتقد بنسبة 80%. يعني قبل فترة ما لا يوجد مثلا أسرة للمرضى، لا يوجد فرشات للمرضى، لا يوجد مريول للطبيب لدخول عمليات المريول المعقم. هذا اللي أنا لا إيدي، لأني كنت أدخل في أشرف في شغلات زي هذه. طبعا غيار الجروح الآن يعني بصعوبة. الشاش المعقم مش موجود. الكحول بصعوبة. كثير هذا المواد اللي بعرفها العامة، الإشي العام. أنا مش طبيب، أنا إداري، لكن هذه الشغلات العامة بعرفها. في اليوم كنا بنحكي في موضوع مرضى غسيل الكلى، ففي بعض المستلزمات الطبية بركبوا لهم مش موجودات برضو. لأنا كنت أحكي لدكتور عن مريض وقول لي هات مواد وأنا بستعد أركب له.
تمام. So in the last 6 months, the degree of the functionality of hospitals in Gaza the non-functionality increased more than 60%. Before when the genocide started, up until the first 6 months, he said the operation wise and equipment wise, hospitals were able to maintain their workflow up to 50 or 60%. But in the last 6 months, there is a huge lack of basic necessities for doctors, medical providers, and for nurses. He stated that basically, to the point that there is no band-aids to put it on injured people, no alcohol to clean any injuries for the injured people at the hospitals. And this day to day, Abu Bara and his staff were discussing the kidney section at the hospital that is basically zero functioning. There is no way they can conduct any kidney operation or kidney cleansing for people who are seeking medical attention for kidneys. He said there is lack of mattresses, lack of oxygen equipments, lack of beds for patients. So people are lying on the ground left and right. And this is basically the current situation. تفضل أبو البراء.
طبعا نقص الأدوية والمواد والمستلزمات، يعني برضو الاحتلال بيمارس يعني عدة طرق لضرب القطاع الصحي. يعني قبل 3 أسابيع قصف مخزن ضخم للمستلزمات والأدوية الطبية بين محافظة رفح وخانونس، واستشهد 3 من الطواقم الطبية. يعني لنقل ساعة قدرية واحد العمال ومسعف بس راحوا يجيبوا ينقلوا أدوية من المخزن لمستشفى ناصر. تم قصف وحرق المخزن، استشهدوا 3. بالنسبة للأجهزة ما بتدخلش أجهزة ولا قطع غيار لوزارة الصحة تقريبا من أكثر من 7 شهور. الدليل في المنطقة الجنوبية لا يوجد جهاز رنين، لا يوجد جهاز رنين بتاتا، بل يوجد جهازين سي تي. العدد كبير جدا للسي تي، مع أنه جهاز الرنين والسي تي يعني في الدول الخارجية اللي غير غزة ممكن يكون طبيب في عيادة خاصة أو مركز عيادات خاصة عنده سي تي.
تمام، خليني أترجم على السريع. He just added that recently Israel has been bold about targeting hospitals, and they're doing it intentionally to hurt the Gaza society, the functionality of the medical sector. The most recent event Abu Bara is speaking of is an Israeli airstrike on one of the storage rooms in the hospital that was bombed, and then after that fire erupted. So every single equipment that existed in that storage room was destroyed. He also talked about CT scan machines and the MRI equipments. He said we have zero MRIs, like there is no MRIs in the hospital at all. Although, as like a Ministry of Health administrator and doctors all over the world, they know that in any normal country, you will have CT scan devices and MRIs in just a private clinic. But that is not the case in Gaza. Major hospitals are missing these necessary equipments to conduct medical support to patients. He MRIs, CT scans. يا أبو البراء تفضل كمل.
كمل.
تفضل.
أضرب لك مثال بسيط برضو مثلا على خدمة الأسنان. مثلا الأسنان، ألم الأسنان معروف. يعني ألم الأسنان لو أي مريض يتألم بالأسنان يعني صعب يتوجه لأي مكان فيه أسنان إلا بصعوبة. لو راح على أي مكان حكومي مش حيلاقي إلا الخلع في الأسنان، يعني خلع الأسنان فقط. فيش له علاج، فيش مواد. ولكن برضو لو بده يتلقى في خدمة القطاع الخاص بصعوبة جدا وأسعار جنونية، تقريبا وصلت فوق العشرة أضعاف. هذا بالنسبة لموضوع الأسنان، هذا الألم البسيط كل مواطن بيعاني منه.
Okay. Tamam. So he added in the last sentence that the Ministry of Health in Gaza is receiving zero support. They're not receiving any equipment coming into Gaza for the last 6 months. No aid is being provided for the Ministry of Health. And then he added to the point that like as basic as a dental operation, where basically if a person is facing toothache in Gaza, they will avoid going to the doctor because there is nothing to do except for extractions of teeth. So the only way they can get rid of toothache is basically extraction. There is no other equipment that will help, for example, cavity or fill-ups or anything that we do here in the US. And he said the prices are also extremely high because there is an obvious lack of equipment and necessities for dental work, so the prices went really up. Do you guys wanna elaborate? Do you want Abu Bara to elaborate more on this question, or do you want to take questions from? I see some messages in the chat that people have questions, and then
Let's
we can
take
move to Muhammad.
Yeah, let's take a couple of questions, maybe one or two, and then we'll speak with Muhammad. Megan says, I have a question. She's wondering the positionally and the struggles of Palestinian women and girls while living through an active genocide. سؤال أبو براء، عم تسأل عن يعني الصعوبة للنساء في هاي الوقت والبنات، يعني من ناحية نساء وبنات، يعني في أصعب لإلهن، ولا يعني الأشياء اللي عم بلاقوها كتير صعبة بالوقت هذا يعني.
يعني بتحكي عن القطاع الصحي ولا بشكل عام؟
بشكل عام.
بشكل عام يعني بخصوص النساء والبنات، يعني موضوع الشخصية. وصلنا لمرحلة يمكن صعبة جدا. كويس. واحتياجات المرأة والبنت الخصوصية الخاصة فيها تقريبا شبه يعني مش موجودة. البامبرز ومشتقاته، سواء لست معاقة أو ست عادية أو ست أو طفل صغيرة، يقدر يقول يعني وحليب طبعا شبه معدم من السوق. آخر شهرين تقريبا، آخر شهرين شبه معدم من السوق. بصراحة يعني الملابس النسائية تقريبا شبه معدمة برضه في السوق. يعني ممكن أنا أشوف موظفة أو موظفة. بصراحة يمكن بصراحة يعني الملابس يمكن تقعد شهرين ما تغيرتش. لو غسلون بغسلون يعني بمي فقط. مواد الغسيل برضه ما في شيء. بخصوص يعني النساء الزائر، طبعا الوضع المادي، الدخل المادي، لأنه في بضاعة موجودة ممكن تلاقيها غالية جدا، والدخل المادي شبه صفر لبعض العائلات، فصعب يعني يحصل عليها بمقابل مادي يعني.
You want to translate, Muhammad? I mean, for women as people, I'll do a little bit and then take a but uh, for women, it's already difficult, thinking about the things they need on a monthly basis, the needs for shampoo. I know that a couple of months ago, shampoo was, I think, $65 a bowl. $65 for a bottle of shampoo. He's saying Abu Bara is saying that there are people that haven't been able to change their clothes in 2 months. And I can definitely attest to meeting folks that hadn't changed for 5 to 6 months when I was there. You want to continue the rest, Muhammad?
Yeah, he talked about the feminine hygiene equipments that are lacking for the last 6 months as well. So no equipments or like any products for female hygiene. Mothers are having problems finding diapers, formulas for their babies, and other necessities for mothers, girls, and young women in general. And then he talked about neurodiverse females that are also having a lot of issues finding medical attention. It's really hard on the neurodiverse folks in Gaza. Um, mm, يسلم أبو البراء. في كمان سؤال. I'm going to translate Christian's question. في كمان سؤال من زميلي كريستيان بيحكي إنه إذا عندك رسالة توجهها للمستمعين الموجودين معنا بالندوة هاي، إيش رسالتك راح تكون اللي بتوجهها لهم؟
الإنسان يعني مثلا كان يعني متزوج من أطفال، فقدتهم في الحرب هذه، فقدتهم أنا تقريبا موجود على رأس عملي في العمل. فقدتهم وما بعرف إنهم يعني كانوا مستشهدين أو ميتين. رسالتي زي أنت ما بدك تعيش مع زوجتك وأولادك، أنا كنت حابب أعيش مع زوجتي وأولادي، نعيش في سلام وأخاء واحترام، عيشة ناس محترمين. آه، أنا وأولادي يعني إحنا كنا الحمد لله عائلة مثقفة. زوجتي مدرسة لغة إنجليزية استشهدت. لي أطفال يعني 4 الحمد لله استشهدوا برضو، يعني في طفل صغير مولود لسه جديد. ال4 كانوا مميزين في المدارس، يعني من أوائل تقريبا المدرسة، مش الفصل، من أوائل المدرسة. كانوا بحبوا يعيشوا عيشة كويسة محترمة، يلبسوا. يعني طبعا احنا بنحب لأولادنا يلبسوا، لكن أنا مش مشكلة، أولادي فقدتهم لناس تانيين يعني. بنحب السلام والاحترام والعيشة حياة كريمة بشرف طبعا، مش باحتلال. نعيش زي ما انتم تحبوا تعيشوا مع أولادكم ومع أزواجكم، وبرضو احنا بنحب نعيش زي.
تمام، يسلم إن شاء الله. أبو البراء حبيبي، أبو البراء حبيبي. Abu al-Bara said, I lost my wife and 4 babies alongside my wife. My wife was an English teacher. All my children were high achieving students in schools. They deserve to live a normal life. I deserve to live a normal life. I deserve a life with my family in safety, peace, justice, and honor, with dignity, and with an end to the occupation. Just like everybody else in the world deserves to live a normal life that we describe, or even we notice. It's a privilege that basically all of us have in the West, living with families in safety, dignity, honor, and freedom and peace. I also deserve that right. I wish to live again with my family that was martyred, but I pray to God that He keeps me standing, and I again deserve to live in peace, dignity, honor, and an end to occupation. Um,
ثانك يو محمد. أبو براء ما تروحش محل عشان أكيد رح يكون في أسئلة تانية. Um, as far as the question from Andrew and Barbara, I'm going to take it that you really maybe have not done too much research. I know that that is a propaganda that is being spewed, but there are some great reports, even by CNN, BBC, that most of all these hospitals, there was no evidence at all that any Hamas, or it's not even Hamas, but the military wing of Hamas was operating out of there. And there have been reports on that. And so I would recommend reading some of those reports online that have been done with video evidence. Um, I'm going to invite our next guest. ضلك معنا أبو براء إذا في أسئلة بنرجعك على السكرين. We have Muhammad Gassas. Muhammad Gassas was a fitness instructor. He's 30 years old. Um, I met him when I was there in March in the journalist tent, and he was working with the journalist who was in our video too, Ahmed Madhoun, and the journalist Bisan Audi that many of you have been watching. Um, he has videos. I remember when I met him, the videos that he had uh, were horrendous. I mean, there was a tent that was bombed right next to them outside the Emirati hospital, and they showed me their journalist tent was right outside the Emirati hospital, and it had like a metal, what do you call it? Like almost like a contain. It was like a container, and you can see from the tent that was bombed next to them when they went outside from their video footage, just kids everywhere, just bodies. And they showed me the shrapnel that had come through, it had cut through the metal of the container that was protecting them, and the shrapnel went into the back of the fridge. I mean, Muhammad will tell you more, but literally he was meters you know, from this shrapnel that flew through the metal through and stuck in the fridge. And if the fridge, he kept saying to me, if the fridge wasn't where it was, I'd be dead now. So I'm gonna invite Muhammad. تفضل أخوي، إذا بتقدر تفتح الكاميرا افتحها، وإذا بتقدر تعمل unmute محمد قساس. I'm hoping his internet has held with us. محمد هيا.
سمعتني؟ مرحبا.
هاي.
مرحبا.
سلامات سلامات.
كيف الحال؟
الحمد لله. I'm gonna let Muhammad Qasim take over.
Thank you, Nancy. سلامات محمد، شو الأخبار؟ سامعني؟
تمام، كيف حالك؟ الحمد لله، بنشكرك.
حبيبي،
بس ما النت عندي شوي هذا.
بسيطة. إذا فصل النت برجع ببعث لك على واتساب وبنضل على
تمام.
تواصل. تمام. في سؤال من زملائي بأي ويتنس لإلك محمد.
تمام بس.
تمام. في سؤال من زملائي بأي ويتنس لإلك محمد.
آه.
بيحكي آه، انت يعني من تجربتك بغزة لل 30 سنة الماضية، عمرك 30 الله يطول بعمرك حبيبي. إسرائيل واظبت على الهجوم على غزة وبهجمات غير استثنائية من 2012 2008
I think we
2001.
lost him.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do you think I should call him on WhatsApp and have him on speaker? Maybe
I think
WhatsApp.
that might be better, yeah.
All right, I'm gonna go on mute for now and see if it's better on my phone, and then I'll have him on speaker here. Sorry,
Okay.
guys.
well,
مم- محمد
لا
ممكن
هي
تعيد
يرجع.
السؤال؟
تمام، اكيد بعيدة. Can we pin? I want to pin his, actually, I want to pin his spotlight for everyone. Perfect. So if we lose him, I can also see it. السؤال محمد إنه إسرائيل وضعت على الهجوم على غزة، سواء بحرب أو بالهجمات ب 2012 2018 2021، آه، مع الإبادة اللي عم بتصير من بعد 7 أكتوبر لليوم. بدنا تحكي لنا يعني بتلخيص سريع، كيف شفت في تغيير سواء بالهجمات الجوية أو بالغزو البري؟ كيف أثر على طبعا كلنا بنشاهد كيف مأثر، بس إذا بتحكي لنا إنه كيف الديجري تبعت أو النسبة تبعت إسرائيل اختلفت من الحروب السابقة لحرب الإبادة اللي عم تواجهها غزة اليوم. I think he's with us, but he gets the question a little bit. Maybe there is a delay, or I think actually we lost him. All right, I'm gonna call him on WhatsApp.
Okay, and while you do that, I will just give a quick plug to our website, www.eyewitnesspalestine.org. Please support these programs that we have. And we will be speaking about them again in a little while. We do have the Gaza Speaks Out series, which will be families of Palestinians from Gaza that have been martyred by Israel. We want to give them an opportunity to speak about their family members and to highlight their lives because they were people, they're humans, and they deserve at minimum to at least be remembered, and inshallah get justice. Um, the Gaza Speaks Out series, we have the mutual aid webinars that we do where we try and support different efforts on the ground. Our next one is, as Christian said, November 4th, with Susan Abul Hawa for the Phoenix Writing School in Gaza that she set up after visiting there. I think Muhammad is ready for us. Are you ready, Muhammad? Okay, you have to unmute as well if possible.
مظبوط. He's saying he wants to try to get back, but I have him here on WhatsApp. So شو سامعك، بس عم بحكي مع لأنه أنت على سبيكر هلا محمد، ولسانا بالندوة. فإذا بدك تضل على واتساب وتجاوب من واتساب، شو رأيك؟ ولا بدك تحاول تدخل على زوم كمان مرة؟
مش عارف، انا بشوف موضوع النت هو اللي بس يعني هو اللي عمل تأثير. هو يعني مش بأحسن حال، مش عارف ايش ما بدهم، او خلص يعني هيك.
خلص بسيطة.
Then he can try and come back in. We'll see if it works.
تمام
We have
تمام محمد، جرب إذا بدك كمان مرة، إذا بدك تخلي الكاميرا مطفية. I lost him here.
okay.
All right.
And of course, just to plug our virtual delegations that happen at the end of each month. For November, we will be in Al Am'ari refugee camp in Ramallah, and in November we will be in Nazareth, and those happen the last Wednesday of each month. What we can here we have some more questions which we will answer in a moment. Do we have, what time is it now? We do have the Ambassador Husam Zomlot joining us in a little while. So please do stay tuned. He'll be joining us from the UK. Husam Zomlot was the ambassador in DC until the Trump administration came in and closed down that office and kicked them out. And he went to the UK and is the ambassador. At the Palestinian embassy in the UK. We can ask one more question to Abu Bara. Abu Bara, طلعت بعدك معنا. I'm going to just pin him. and في سؤال أبو براء, they're asking about any thoughts about from Palestine about the US elections. I'm just laughing because I'm like, I don't think it's gonna make a difference because it's just a job position, but I'm gonna let them answer. أبو براء, شو في حدا عم بيسأل إيش رأيكم في how do you say elections? Oh my gosh.
I'll do it. I'll do it.
How did I forget?
قبل براء، السؤال بأنه من وجهة نظرك كيف ممكن الانتخابات بالولايات المتحدة الأمريكية تأثر، انتخابات نانسي
انتخابات إذا
تأثر
في يعني خلوش يحس انه يعني كيف ايش فكركم بالانتخابات؟ يعني احنا عم نضحك عشان بنضحك على الانتخابات.
احنا عارفين انه لا بتقدم ولا بتأخر ابو البراء، بس في سؤال انه اذا بدك تعطينا رأيك بكيف ممكن انتخابات امريكا تأثر على الوضع الراهن في غزة.
آه، أنا واحد من الناس كنت حابب أتخصص علوم سياسية وقطاع غزة، ولكن ما تخصصتش علوم سياسية لأنه ما كانش موجود تخصص علوم سياسية يعني بالضبط، لأنه كان مطلوب موجود اقتصاد وعلوم سياسية. يعني بحب السياسة ومهتم في السياسة ومهتم في الكورة، يعني أنا بشجع الكورة بشكل دولي كويس،
اي فريق.
والسياسة والسياسة متابعها كويس. لكن بصراحة آخر سنة ما تابعت السياسة كتير لأنه إحنا مشغولين في حروبنا الموجودة هين. يعني آخر شيء كنا متابعين روسيا وأوكرانيا كل حدثيرها، يعني تابعها يعني يوم يوم كنت أسمعها محللين. آخر سنة ما انتبهناش للأخبار السياسية برا كتير، يعني رايحين أخبار لبنان وإيران. طبعا إحنا الانتخابات الأمريكية، آه، يعني آخر فترة قريت إنه ترامب واعد جالية مسلمة أو حاكي مع مسلم أو بده يعيدوا في الانتخابات عصبة، يعني ينصف يعني يحل الشرق الأوسط يعني. احنا زي الانتخابات الإسرائيلية أو الانتخابات الأمريكية 2-1، وجهان لعملة واحدة. يعني عندنا القرار وجهان لعملة واحدة. في نعتبر زي ترامب شخص واضح، يعني عدو واضح، شرس، أفكاره علنية. مش المقابله مين ما يكون، يعني الاتجاه الثاني حيكون خبيث. طبعا الاثنين لوبي صهيوني حيكون، اللوبي الصهيوني بتسمع بسيطر على الاثنين. وما اقدرش اظني الانتخابات سواء آه، حزب الجمهور اظني والديمقراطي اظني الاثنين وجهان لعملة واحدة. وما اظنيش يعني تفرق للقضية الفلسطينية كثير. زي الانتخابات الإسرائيلية، اللقود أو العمل أو اللقود مقابل المعارضة، الاثنين اللي عملوا واحدة. في رئيس بحكي بكل وضوح عدواني رسمي زي ترامب، والثاني بحكي بخباثة هو أخطر يعني بصراحة يعني. فإحنا بنهتم بالانتخابات الأمريكية وكل انتخابات الدول يعني اللي بتهمنا.
خليني أترجم لها مع السريع. So أبو البراء said I have always been interested in politics. As a matter of fact, I wanted to study political science in college back in the days, but he could not find that specific program. It was more economy within international economy and politics. He's also interested in soccer, so he used to watch politics and soccer at the same time. For the last year, he did not have the privilege to keep up with politics outside of the genocide that is happening. He did not have the time to look at anything that was happening. Although before the genocide, he was keeping an eye on the Russia and Ukraine conflict or war that is happening. But in his opinion, as for the American elections, he believes that the Democratic Party and the Republican parties are both two faces for the same coin, as well as the Israeli elections, whether it's the Likud party or the opposition for the Likud party, is also two faces for the same coin. He mentioned the Zionist lobby that exists in the US and how it influences the elections in the United States of America, and as well as the religious Zionist lobby that exists in Jerusalem in Israeli elections. He thinks that Trump is an obvious hater and an obvious enemy to the Palestinians with all the statements that he made public. So it's easier to deal with a direct, a more open hater or enemy to the Palestinians rather than his opposition, which is Kamala Harris, who's doing the work from under the tables. Her stance on the Palestinians is identical to what Trump thinks of the Palestinians, but she tiptoes around the topic publicly just to keep up the party's logistics and policies, which is the Democratic Party. But at the end of the day, in his words, Abu al-Bara believes that the elections, regardless of the result of the American elections, they're going to maintain the status quo of what Israel is doing, and that's due to the Zionist lobby that exists and and how huge the influence of Zionist lobby like AIPAC is on our elected officials. يسلموا أبو البراء حبيبي، غلبناك. وبعرف إنه السؤال يعني إنه يعني ما بهمنا صراحة انتخابات أمريكا، بس حبينا نسألك السؤال. I think محمد قساس is back with us. Or, no. Okay, so we have, do you think?
I'll try and bring him in home.
Okay, so we have another question. Actually, until we have Dr. Ambassador Husam Zomlot join us, I saw somebody was wondering about the propaganda that Israel is basically, I mean, the propaganda around hospitals and Hamas in hospitals. Just real quick, as a communication professional with a master's degree in communication, we have something in public speaking and basically communications. It's called atrocity propaganda. So I urge you to Google it. This is a tool that Israel has been using for decades. As much as I remember, I grew up and lived in Ramallah, Palestine. And in Ramallah, we have almost 0 to 0.1 presence of Hamas in the city itself. Yet every time Israel invade Ramallah, they invade the major hospitals in Ramallah. It's a tactic they use. Even Lebanon today, and what's happening in Lebanon doesn't have Hamas, especially in Beirut. Like hospitals that are predominantly in Christian neighborhoods in Lebanon are being also accused of having Hezbollah weapons under them. So it's a tactic, it's a repetitive tactic that Israel always used to atrocity propaganda. They did that with the Shifa hospital when they literally showed us on TV, on CNN, a calendar, a handwritten calendar in Arabic that I use in my day-to-day work here with Eyewitness Palestine, and they said this is a map to the tunnels, right? That's how lunatic Israel was. So I think, and in my opinion, as Muhammad Qasim, any person who believes Israeli propaganda needs to question their logic and reasoning, like highly question the logic and reasoning behind the functionality of their perception of life and politics. محمد قساس أهلا وسهلا. سامعني؟
ايه سامعك، سامعني انت هيك؟
حبيبي سامعك.
تمام حبيبي.
ماشي، خلينا على السريع نرجع للسؤال. So I'm going to ask محمد قساس the question that my colleague raised. محمد قساس تحكي لنا عن الدرجة اللي إسرائيل عم بتعملها بغزة حاليا، كيف اختلفت عن الحروب السابقة 2012 و2021؟
العادة هي بتكون تصعيدات لمواقع، مواقع اللي هي حكومية، بتكون بعيدة عن المدنيين، بتكون لأشياء محدودة عسكرية. لكن هاي الحرب غيرت كل المعطيات. هاي الحرب استهدفت المدني، المسعف، الدكتور، الشجر، الحجر، ما خلت مكان إلا استهدفته. هلا فعليا اللي انتم بتشوفوه على الشاشة مختلف جدا عن اللي احنا بنعيشه بالواقع. اللي احنا بنعيشه بالواقع فعليا من اهوال ايام القيامة. يعني انت متخيل انه هو من قوة الصوت تقعد بعديها لساعات انه انت تتدارك بس كمية الصوت انه هذا يطلع من جواك، او انه انت تستوعب انه انت ضليت، انه انت حي ما رحت. ف
تمام. آسف على المقاطعة، بس بدي أغلبك بعد كل جملة إنه تاخذ باوز، إنه توقف صغير شوي صغيرة عشان أترجم للمستمعين
اوكي.
بالإنجليزي، فبدي
اوكي.
أترجمها.
اوكي
So
خذ راحتك.
Habibi Taslam. So Muhammad Qassas was answering the question of basically the degree that Israel is using, like how different is Israel functioning within Gaza today and the genocide that it's conducting from other wars that happened or aggressions that happened previously on Gaza for the last 75 years with the 2012 aggression, the 2018 and the 2021. And Muhammad started answering by saying that previously, in previous aggressions that Israel conducted on Gaza, he felt that the previous ones used to be more of a limited operation or quote unquote operation that Israel is conducting on the Gaza Strip in Palestine, with basically sticking to targeting governmental institutions or like areas near governmental institutions. But with the genocide that is happening currently, that started after October 7th in 2023 and today, the targeting started reaching everything that breathes in Gaza above the ground: trees, animals, humans, civilians, every single person and every single breathing creature in Gaza is basically being targeted by Israel. And he's explaining the situation. Basically, it's not what you're only seeing on television. It's not only the bomb, and that's it. There is an aftermath to the bomb. There is the trauma that you will live and you will face. There is every single thing that happens after the bomb that we don't see on television. And حكيت لي عن كيف التفجير بيعمل، وهون وقفتك أنا عشان نترجم، صح؟
هو كتير عن عبارة اللي هو عارف لما تشوف الدنيا هي حواليك كلها حمرة وبعديها بتصير غبرة، وبنفس اللحظة بتتدارك وانت بالغبرة هاي، فبتسأل حالك، بتخاطب حالك أنا حي، بتصير تفقد جسمك. شفت لما حدا بفكر انه هو ناسه الجدران والاشياء هاي بصير يفقد حاله، فاحنا فعليا بنصير هيك نفقد حالنا. انا في ايدي راحوا، رجلي، وداني بتدارك. بعد وقت لما بيطلع اللي هو بهدى الجو، بتصير تطلع انه انا منيح، انا منيح، متاكد. ممكن تكون مصاب شظايا، ممكن هاي الشظايا ممكن تقتلك. الشظايا هاي ممكن تدخل على المخ، ممكن تدخل على اوتار، آه، تقتل بالأعصاب، تعمل لك شلل، كتير مؤذية هي. فلحظة الضربة هاي كتير كتير، يعني عشنا أكثر من ضربات كانت ما يقارب بيننا وبينها كان متر. يعني إحنا نجونا منها، فإحنا لحد الآن من صدمة اللي هو نجونا منها، إنه أنت مش قادر تستوعب من كمية الصوت ومن كمية الضربة ومن كمية الشهداء اللي راحت في الضربة هاي. استهدفوا خيمة جنبنا بيننا وبينها متر، فراحوا فيها 13 شهيد. تمام. هدول 13 شهيد، يعني احنا كان ممكن نكون منهم، بس احنا بلطف ربنا، ربنا هيك نجانا. ودخلت علينا شظايا، والشظايا يعني ربنا له حكمة ما اجت اللي هي حوالينا، اجت جنبنا. ف
ماشي.
و...
خليني أترجم على السريع محمد، وبعد ما أخلص ترجمة بدي أغلبك تضل معنا على السمع،
اوكي.
ومنكمل معك النقاش أو الأسئلة إذا أجانا أي أسئلة جديدة. So Muhammad is explaining the situation as in his own words. He said it's like an apocalypse. It's like the end of times. When the bomb lands in the area you're in, all you see is red and dust. Like there is a lot of dust, there is a lot of fire, there is a lot of darkness. So the first thing he starts doing amidst all that scenario is basically checking his parts of his body to make sure that he's still alive. He starts calling people saying, "Are we alive or are we dead?" He checks to see if he's missing a leg or an arm. So the situation is beyond what we hear of or we're watching. It's something new that he's been seeing since he lived all his time in Gaza, but this is the first time that he also feels guilt of like not dying because his neighbor died and his friend died. So he feels the survival guilt that also, I mean, everybody else, every single Palestinian is feeling. And allow me to speak for Palestinians today. محمد يسلموا كتير. خليك معنا على السمع. أنا ما pass the mic to Nancy.
اوكي
I
اكيد
was
نعم.
I was going to say let him finish his thought. We just need a couple of minutes. Is that okay?
Yeah, yeah. So إذا بدك محمد إنه يعني تنهي لنا المشهد أو خلينا ننتقل على سؤال تاني actually إنه برأيك يعني أنت كيف بتحس العدالة رح تتحقق إلك كغزاوي فلسطيني عايش بغزة؟ كيف بتشوف العدالة بتتحقق؟ خليني أترجم السؤال بس سمحت. So I asked Muhammad to tell us how does he see justice in Palestine? How does he envision justice? تفضل محمد.
العدالة اللي هو ما يكون فيه، وتحت ما في احتلال هاي بدك تحط كثير شغلات. كونك انت مش محتل كثير بتفرق جدا. فالعدالة انه انت ما تكون محتل، وطالما انت محتل ما في عدالة. ما في عدالة في اي بلد فيها احتلال.
خليني
انت
أترجم
انت
عشان ما
مضطهد. طالما في احتلال فانت مضطهد حقك. طالما في احتلال فانت مسلوب جزء من من كل حاجة حلوة سوى وطنك. في غصة بالقلب، فما في عدالة بوجود احتلال.
So Muhammad just said that justice will never exist as long as the occupation is happening in Palestine. So as long as we're under the occupation, he doesn't see justice prevail. Justice to him is to live freely in a country or in a land that is his, in a land that he was born in, to live without an occupation and to live just like any other human that is not living under occupation. That is what justice to him. So what is important, that's what Muhammad is saying, what is important here to know is justice will come after the end to the occupation. As long as the occupation exists, he doesn't see any light of justice around him.
Thank you so much. محمد ضلك معانا.
معك.
أكيد إذا في أسئلة رح نقدمهن بعد ما نخلص اللقاء اللي جاي. Muhammad is currently in Gaza and he will stay with us. If you do have questions, please do put them into the chat for us, and we will do our best to get to all the questions after our next guest. I would like to welcome Ambassador Husam Zomlot, Palestinian ambassador to the UK. Like I mentioned before, the ambassador was in DC until the Trump administration came in and closed the office down. شكرا كتير كتير حسام إنه أنت معنا. بعرف إنه وقتك is limited, so we really appreciate you being with us today. Um, and especially because a lot of people don't know, which is brings me to my first question. A lot of people don't know that you were born and raised in a refugee camp in Ghazi. So my first question for you, Ambassador, is could you just tell us a little bit about your journey and what led you to gain interest in politics and to where you are today?
مساء الخير أولا نانسي ومساء الخير للجميع. السلام عليكم. Good evening. Hello everybody. And allow me first, Nancy, to thank you for organizing this Zoom, bringing all these people, friends, old and new friends. Thank you for Eyewitness Palestine for keeping the issue. This is very important to us, and all the team with you, Hamad, Larry, Michelle, for putting this together. And it is my honor. I apologize for being late. I am literally outside the UK Parliament after giving a briefing to the Foreign Affairs Committee here about the dire situation in Gaza, all over Palestine, and the asks by us from this government, the UK government, and other governments, of course, at this very critical point in time. Yes, I was born in Rafah refugee camp, the Shabura refugee camp. I'm not going to tell you what year, otherwise you'll know how young I am. But I was born in a refugee camp. I grew up there up until 14 years old. And um, that was the most important experience of my life. And it's what forms me, what informs me, what inspires me. It's who I am, because the community around a refugee camp is a community that is solid, that has collective experience of trauma, the Nakba, but also has a collective investment in its sons and daughters. I was there, and I was also lucky that later on in my life I moved in as a young man, 17, 18, to the West Bank to study at Birzeit University, and there I had the direct contact with the beloved side of my homeland and our people. So I lived 1/3 of my life in Gaza, 1/3 of my life in the West Bank, and 1/3 of my life with our beloved community in the diaspora and refugees outside. And I lived a few years where some of you are in the US as your ambassador, but before that as an academic in the beautiful Boston for a few years, teaching at this unknown university by the name of Harvard.
Thank you. My next question is, you said something. So every time I'm asked to speak anywhere, something really important that I've been saying for years, not just since October 7th of 2023. I always talk about how important language is, and especially when people say women and children, although they're very important, but something that is important to me is my father and my grandfather and my brother and my uncles and Palestinian men. And one thing that I saw in Gaza in March, people expect me to say that the destruction and the death that I saw was the hardest thing, but for me, it wasn't. It was seeing how much people had to repress their pride, because we're very prideful people, especially our men. And one of the hardest things was watching, our people have to ask for things that we normally would never dream of asking for anything. Instead, we give so much. And I heard you speaking and talking about the importance of the Palestinian man. And so I wanted you to elaborate a little bit about that, because it's very important to me. And I keep trying to remind people that Palestinian men are just as important as our women and our children. And just in general, the realities of life for Palestinian men and Palestinians in general in Gaza, in the West Bank, prior to October 7th of last year.
Of course, the Palestinian men have been really what's the word, at the receiving end of all this. The biggest sort of targeting by Israel is of our men. Historically, during the first Intifada, half of the male population of the Palestinian people inside the occupied territory was imprisoned. Half was imprisoned by Israel. of the male population, men. And by the way, many of them are children, but most of them are also men. And many of them, you're talking about considerable proportion, are held without charge, without trial, under the so-called administrative detention that is renewed sometimes indefinitely. And you may have been following the cases, the many documented even by the UN cases of torture, including against children, but also rape that was very well documented recently. And it's really rather alarming that in the mainstream Israeli discussions, even in the Knesset, their politicians were discussing, and their officials, including ministers, whether raping Palestinian prisoners and detainees was legitimate or not. It doesn't belong to our time and era, such a mindset. So yeah, men, we need to focus on men, because usually we do say, women and children are killed. Of course, Israel is killing our women and our children in mass numbers. But we also need not to forget our men, particularly that part and parcel of Israel's war is not just the mass murder or the mass destruction. It's primarily, all that is primarily focused on the humiliations of the Palestinian people, the defeat of the morale, if you may, and for that they target the men first and foremost. They kill their children, the fathers' children, and their wives, because they want to attack the men morale, the men spirit, and humiliate. They deprive families of food and water because a father would feel a sense of degradation, a sense of, that he's not delivering to his own kids. He's not even able to provide medicine for a child with terminal illness. Can you put yourself? Today, I shared a post on a father from Gaza, a Palestinian, who every single day gives his paralyzed son because of an Israeli shaban, physiotherapy. That tells you all what you need. The pressure, the sheer pressure on Palestinian men right now to protect their families, their children, their wives, their country, their people. It's unbelievable. So yes, we must focus. And Israel wants us to believe that only it is women and children that are wrong to be killed. Every single man Israel killed. Every single man they have arrested and rounded without trial and charge. All the tortures are equally wrong.
Thank you so much. Do you mind shedding some light on the current situation on the ground in Gaza, the scale of destruction? Another thing that I keep saying to people is whatever we're seeing is like 5%, if that, of what is really happening. If we think about how many people are able to get internet and upload videos, who's even thinking, the few that are videoing and putting out videos, the journalists that are left, from the 140, or it's probably more now, that have been murdered. It's nothing compared to the destruction and death. And like Muhammad Gassas said, everywhere he goes, you just smell death in Gaza. But the mortality level, the injuries, the people under the rubble. Can you talk a little bit about that? The lack of access to anything, and then the prices of anything that, if anything does get in, the situation of people being able to provide anything for their families at this point is so scarce. One question as well people were asking is about, I know that many medical missions were also banned a couple of weeks ago from entering. What is because Rafah is closed, what is the amount of people that are going in or out? I know it's not many, but just a little bit about the current situation, and so we can get a picture of, what is being allowed in, what is, what are people, what do they have? They don't really have access to anything, but could you elaborate for that on us as well? And also because people keep saying about the numbers, which we are not numbers, we're humans, and everybody has a name and a family, but the numbers are not even close to what it probably is. Because I was meeting people who had 90 members of their family under the rubble, and this was 4 months later that I was meeting them. There are so many injuries that people don't even know about, what's priority, what's not. Would you elaborate a little bit for us on that?
Of course, Nancy, but allow me first to convey my love and best regards to my brothers Abu al-Bara and Muhammad al-Qassas from Gaza, Palestine, and hopefully, inshallah, we will meet in better situation. And I've been following some of what you've been doing and saying, and I know how difficult and how traumatizing the situation is. But I need you to know that you have so many friends outside, and what is happening, this global movement, particularly in the UK and in London here, the outpouring support by the British people is unprecedented. So at least we are not alone, Muhammad and Abu Bara. Having said that about numbers are staggering. The highest number of children killed in any conflict in any given period, the highest number of women, the highest number of aid workers, the highest number of journalists, the highest number of doctors. It's unprecedented. Israel has scored the highest in every single aspect of all these matters. And when it comes not only to human life, but to livelihoods, which is very important. Israel is not just targeting the lives of innocent people en masse. And you may refer to the Lancet magazine here in London that estimated the number of those who have been killed. Already that estimation was 3 months ago, at 182,000 Palestinians, innocent civilians have been killed, either directly by the bombardments and what have you, or indirectly by the lack of medicine, the lack of food, the lack of water, the starvation and the disease and the spread of the disease. And by the way, they keep saying this is a very conservative estimate. This is 8% almost of the Gaza population have been murdered by Israel. And I always give the British public here a small comparison. If you apply it on the UK sort of population, that's more than 5 million Brits have been murdered by a foreign invasion and a foreign aggression. And if you apply it on the US, that's even the numbers will be much bigger. Now the question is, why Israel is targeting lives and livelihoods? Why are they targeting the hospitals and the schools and the universities and all that? And I'll give you just one example. They have destroyed, according to the United Nations, again very conservative, 66% of all structures in the Gaza Strip. So that includes 70% of all homes, 80% of schools, 90% of hospitals, and 100% of all universities. Why are they doing that? It's very simple. They are turning Gaza unlivable. They want to make Gaza unlivable. They want Gaza lifeless. And what they are doing in the north of Gaza now, Beit Hanun, Beit Lahia, and Jabalia, is depopulation. It's ethnic cleansing. And I think the world is watching it again. Another Nakba, but on steroids, on a different level of criminality and of atrocities. And by the way, I am the son of Nakba, and what I hear from my own parents and grandparents, what is happening in Gaza now is way worse than what happened already in the most traumatic experience of a nation, which is the 1948 experience of mass ethnic cleansing. So this is the plan, and it's unfolding right in front of our eyes. Okay, they will ethnically cleanse the people from the north, more than 400,000, to the south, and then they will keep pushing. Netanyahu feels now that he has a free hand. That's the bottom line. Nobody is stopping him. None, not in the region, not regionally, I mean globally. The US is busy with its own elections, and even after elections, the US will not come up with anything that will really enforce international law, let alone the US policy itself in terms of a two-state solution. So I'm saying all that to say that many people say Israel doesn't have a plan, Israel doesn't have a strategy. Israel does have a plan, and they are executing their plan. That's a key point. And numbers are important, but also names are very important, Nancy. And we are here trying our best. And I know that you have shown a video to show some of these names and some of the stories. But the stories that are coming out of Gaza, coming out of the West Bank, coming out of Palestinians everywhere is very impactful. And we need to come to bring more the human side of us, and not just being victims, but being active victims, being resilient victims, being stubborn victims, being rooted victims. And I think the Palestinian people have a lot to show in that. And that's what inspired the global movement now. That's why you have 1 million people in the streets of London in one go, and that 1 million still coming and coming and coming and coming, and still filling the streets of London and all over the world, not just London. So there are many stories of sheer sadness and sheer hurt, but there are also stories of inspiration and of strength, and we draw strength from our people. The heroism of people who are being genocided and still documenting in real time their own extermination. It's unprecedented. And that's why this is the first live streamed genocide ever. And that's why no one on this earth claims or can claim they didn't know. And that's why we are focusing on the issue of accountability, on the issue of sanctions, on the issue of arms embargo, and all that you are following, and of course the recognition of the state of Palestine. And that's why we have had some successes, especially in the arena of arms embargo, in the arena of accountability and the ICC. Still, we're waiting for the arrest warrants, but at least the process. ICJ ruling was very important, historic, that Israel's presence in the occupied territories, all of it, Gaza, the West Bank, and East Jerusalem, is unlawful and must end without any qualifications, that all of its settlements, all of them, are illegal and must be dismantled, and that all third parties, that's the ICJ ruling, all third parties must cease immediately to provide any political, legal, or material support to Israel. Otherwise, they will be complicit in the genocide Israel is committing. So the legal track is very important. Why did I delve or deviate it to all that? Just to draw a picture for you that as much as our people are being slain by mass numbers, as much as we are also able to once and for all focus on the root cause and bring about international alliances like you are doing now, Nancy. And I see many brothers and sisters here to really walk with us this last mile and to make sure that we sit on the goal. And the goal is not just to go back to the status quo ante, to the 6th of October. The goal is never to go back. There is no going back from this point. The goal is to move forward, like the ANC did with South Africa, like the civil rights movement of the US, like Mahatma Gandhi, in India, like Nelson Mandela, all these stories. And I think Palestine now has the absolute energy and making of a global movement that will walk with us to the finish line. And with all the atrocities, we see the finish line. I personally see the finish line in front of my eyes. It will be hard. It will be the hardest. There will be a lot of suffering, but we have got to get there, Nancy.
We will. We will. We will. Thank you. I know you don't have much time, so I just have another question for you. But really quickly, speaking of names, and we can uplift names whenever we have an opportunity, I do want to uplift the name of somebody who was like a brother to me, who was murdered yesterday, a year ago, in 2023 in Balata refugee camp, Rasmi Arafat. He was shot with an explosive bullet, and he was like my brother. And he worked in Yafa Cultural Center with kids, was one of the nicest people, and very, very active in his community. So I just want to remember Rasmi. In your opinion, Ambassador, what are the most viable solutions, or some of the most viable solutions, for achieving justice for the Palestinians? And what real role can the international community play in this process in order to try and stop the genocide?
Nancy, it doesn't matter what form of a solution. What matters is that the Palestinian people have birthrights, inalienable rights that are sacred, that must be fulfilled. And so long as they are not fulfilled, the Palestinian people will continue their struggle to fulfill them. The first right is the right to self-determination. We are a nation, and what a nation. We are ancient. We are the cradle of civilizations, the birthplace of Christianity, and we are proud of our connection to all religions, including Islam, and our historic bridging between East and West. So the right of self-determination, that's number one. Number two is the right of return. We have been forced out of our homes and farms. And no one can, in any way or another, claim that we don't have a right to go back to our own properties. The whole West liberal idea is about property rights and property protections and private properties. And the third aspect of our rights is equality wherever we live and whatever state that we are under. We have to be treated equally like all other and given equal rights, including the right to vote and the right to run elections. Now, regardless of how these three rights are achieved, the institutional setting is not the most important. But the end of Israel's occupation of Palestinian land that began in 1967 and the establishing of a Palestinian independent state with Jerusalem as its capital is a major thing. We want and demand and have been struggling for liberation, not for civil rights, Nancy. It's about land, and it's about our sovereignty over our land, and it's about a state that can protect and can provide for its people. And we don't believe Israel can ever do that. We need our state that will finally protect our people, represent our people, provide for our people, reconstruct the damages, and rebuild from the ruins that Israel is leaving behind. And that can only happen via a state as an actor in the international system. And what the international community needs to do, they need to enforce this vision, and they need to enforce their own resolutions, their own vision, their own policy for all these years, not just ask or demand or urge. And we've had statements and condemnations and calling are meaningless really anymore, and they are not as impactful. They are not enough. We need enforcement. We need action. And we know how to enforce this. You can only enforce this internationally if you first confirm the final destination by deeds, not by words, i.e. recognize the state of Palestine, admit Palestine as a member state, call for an international peace conference, but B, create the leverage with those who are not complying, i.e. sanctions, arms embargo, accountability. All those war criminals must be behind bars, Nancy. And this is not just because we demand and we will justice to all the victims, which is very important, but also we want to build deterrence. So we make sure that the next war criminals are checked, and the next war criminals will think twice before they commit such atrocities, before they target our children, our women, our schools, our lives and livelihoods. The normalization of these scenes is unacceptable. And we must all together make sure that they will be sent to The Hague. And then you will see that the international community is doing its own obligation, because these are not Palestinian demands. This is the obligation of the international system we built together. I assure you we are working in that direction. Our pressure is in that direction, but we need your pressure with us. We need your work with us. Every hand matters, every voice matters, to make sure that Israel is no longer the exception to every rule. It's no longer immune from our laws. It's no longer above every human value, and that we are all treated equally, and law cannot be subdivided. I think this is a message that we need to push home, and I think this is a message that all of our friends here around this table, I see Larry and I see many of your friends around this table. I think this is a message that we can all unite around.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Zomlot. Do you have any more time, or do you have to run? I know you were limited in.
I am, because I have to be somewhere else giving another talk, unfortunately. But I'm happy to have a conversation later with you, Nancy, and your friends. But if any of your colleagues want to say a word or so, I see many brothers with kofiyah here.
Many in the US, way more than when I moved here. Everybody's wearing it now. It's beautiful. Actually, a lot of people say, should I wear the kufiya? Is it appropriation? And I'm like, no, Palestinians are very happy when they see people wearing the kufiya, always, all over the place. It makes us happy to see that we have allies everywhere. There were many questions, but I won't get into that. I really appreciate your time. إن شاء الله كلنا نتلاقى في بلدنا. تفضلوا عنا حيفا. عن قريب إن شاء الله. وبعرفش محمد I think we lost him كمان. كان محمد كساس معنا. We hope to see you again. We hope to, we hope we can have something that is I mean, this has been very positive, but just something where we can celebrate our people, inshallah, soon. Thank you so much for your time, Ambassador. We appreciate you. شكرا كتير.
ألف سلامة، مع السلامة، مع
مع
السلامة.
السلامة. I'm going to hand it over. Michelle, let's give Michelle a big round. This is our filmmaker, Michelle Zananiri, who made the beautiful film and all the virtual delegations that you've been seeing. Thank you so much, brother. We appreciate you. I'm going to pass it to my brother Christian, our operations and programming manager, to give you some updates on what is coming up. Thank you so much for staying with us. I know we've gone over time a little bit, and we appreciate everybody in this room.
Thank you, Nancy, and thank you again to our guests today, Ambassador Zomlot, Abu Barah, and Mohammed Qassas. Um, we've really appreciated again being able to hear directly from people that are living in Gaza under this genocide, as well as those outside that are advocating for the justice and liberation for Palestine. So thank you to everybody that stayed with us through this talk. I just want to share once again that we have two upcoming delegations that you can submit applications for. One is Witnessing Palestine. This is our general delegation in November through the West Bank and 1948 territories. And then we have Black in the Holy Land in December, which is a delegation for Black and Indigenous people and people of color to learn from Afro-Palestinians and other Black and African populations living in Palestine. So we'll put the link to apply for those in the chat. And then feel free to join us again on Monday at 12 p.m. Eastern for discussion with Susan Abdul Hawa, the founder of Playgrounds for Palestine, about the Phoenix Elementary School that Playgrounds for Palestine launched in Gaza earlier this year to help support the needs of students who have been facing more than a year outside of formal schooling. So you can register for that. We'll put the link to that in the chat as well. But we always appreciate you joining. We hope to see you all again soon. And we hope even more that we're able to end this genocide. Do we have any of the I don't think Abu Barah or Muhammad are still here if there were any closing remarks.
I think they got cut off. I don't know what the internet situation is, so if they come back in the next couple of minutes, we can throw them on. I wanted to just, I know a lot of people came in late, and I know we're going to repost this. I was gonna ask if in the chat people want to put, if you missed the video, I'm happy to play it again, and I can hold back on the webinar if people want to see the video, because it is very powerful, and our guests that you heard speak are in that video in Gaza. So if you want me to play it again, I'm happy to. Just throw a yes in the chat. For those that missed the video, it's 14 minutes, and it is a really beautiful, powerful video. It got me really emotional because there were parts that I filmed there in Gaza that I not forgot, but there's just so much, right? So we will play that again. I know some of you need to log off, so feel free to do so. And the webinar, as well as the beginning of the webinar with the video and the chat with our guests will be posted to our website. I will go to the video. Is there anything else that you wanted to add, Christian, before I replay that?
No, that's it. I'll stop the recording. Or someone should stop the recording. But